From Jeffrey Julmus tripping over the first hurdle to Heather Dorniden proving that you can still get back up again, here are the most embarrassing track and field fails of all time. In true Olympic spirit, Haitian athlete Jeffrey Julmus picked himself back up again after he tumbled and fell over the first hurdle in the men's 110 meters at the 2016 Rio Olympics. The 59-second clip of one of the biggest fails in Olympic history has gone viral all over social media. A couple of thousand retweets on Twitter, a couple of million views on YouTube, and just over 100,000 comments on Reddit. Yep, fans just couldn't stop themselves from watching the clip over and over again. But it's not just because Jeffrey tumbled on the first hurdle. In fact, an overwhelming number of those comments I just talked about are of people appreciating Julmus's Olympic spirit. I'll give you a rundown of the clip. The American-born Haitian athlete is smirking at the camera and points at his watch, probably implying that he'll be done with the race in no time. Then, the fateful leap and the look of "I wish the earth would swallow me up" on Jeffrey's face when he realizes that there's no way he can win now. The truth is, even if Jeffrey tried his hardest, he really was about to be disqualified. Plus, he knew this moment would go down in Olympic history. That might have been enough to keep just about anyone down except for a track star. Yes, sir? Jeffrey shook his head, got up, and proceeded to finish the race. The guy made it to the finish line in just over 25 seconds, a whole 13 seconds after the race winner, Orlando Ortega from Spain, and was most definitely disqualified. But hey, he did make it, which gets him a pat on the back at least. This reminds me of another viral clip from back in 2013 when a Chinese athlete decided to play by his own rules. Now, being someone who doesn't play by the rules might be cool when we're talking about teenage kids. But in the real world, you're supposed to follow a set of rules. That's why they're there in the first place. But of course, this Chinese athlete had us all questioning if we were the ones who didn't understand the rules of track and field. I mean, the confidence of this man to just run through the hurdles, and yes, I mean run through them and not even try to leap over, had us all wondering if he was actually onto something. Well, obviously he wasn't. The athlete was competing in a local men's 100 meters event and tumbled over the first hurdle. He picked himself back up and proceeded to tumble over the second. Fool me once, fool me twice, but definitely not a third time. Because when the guy was faced with the third hurdle in his lane, he just decided to push it out of his way. Somewhere along the race, he couldn't push through his own hurdle, which is when he decided to switch lanes and push through his opponent's hurdle. Thanks? Needless to say, the judges kept on yelling at him to stop and had the rest of the contestants compete again without Wreck-It Ralph over here. I don't know what he was thinking, because track and field have some of the more straightforward rules there are. Don't leap over the hurdles in a hurdle race, and don't lose your shoe during a steeplechase. Well, this Kenyan athlete decided to bend the rules during his race by only competing with one shoe. Reigning Olympic and world steeplechase champion Conseslus Kipruto came close to losing his coveted title when his left shoe came flying off during the men's 3,000 meters in Zurich, Switzerland. Kipruto lost his groove for a second while coming out of a bend, and his shoe went flying across the track. Now, this would have almost guaranteed that the Kenyan couldn't make it through the finish line in time. But you don't become world champion for nothing. Not only did Kipruto make it through, but he also won the whole thing. I know, I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't see it myself. The Kenyan runner sprinted through with one shoe and then hopped on over to the benches for his coach to quickly give him a fresh pair. Talk about feeling the burn. He later tweeted, saying that he did sustain slight injuries to his left foot, what with competing in a 3,000 meter without a shoe and all, but that he was thankful for the crowd, who kept cheering him on and motivating him to make it through. He also wants this to serve as a reminder to everyone else that you really can do anything you set your mind to. Look, it's all fun and games until someone seriously gets hurt. And they did in this next case, when a track star was sucker punched in the middle of the race. The unfortunate event happened in Florida in 2022, when two runners got rowdy, which ended up with one of them on the ground, and the other one being restrained by school officials. Yep, this happened at a high school track event. The video went viral on Twitter, where it's been retweeted about 100 times. Here's the context. The athlete in white had yelled at the athlete in black to get off the track during an earlier lap. Apparently, The one in black was running through the track, even though he wasn't competing. Some choice words were thrown around, and school officials had to step in and separate the two. Then, when the athlete in white was making it through the finish line, the guy in black sprints over and sucker punches him in the back of the head. The video was captured by someone in the stands, and you could hear everyone let out a collective gasp because the guy who was just assaulted fell to the floor and wasn't getting up. It looked like he was seriously hurt. Florida High School Athletic Association and the local police took notice of the events, but there's still no confirmation if any charges were filed. I just hope everyone's okay. There was another time when a famous track athlete was left lying on the floor, but it was when John Drummond refused to leave the event, even after he was disqualified for a false start at the 2003 World Champions. John Drummond was riding a high after the IAAF Champions and planned on making the ultimate comeback at the World Championships, after he'd previously been pulled out of the final because of a torn quadriceps muscle. This was John's race, and John's race alone, and I mean, it did end up being one of the races he was most remembered for. Unfortunately, it wasn't the way the American track star had hoped it'd go. At the Paris track, John was accused of a false start. He got confrontational and asked for a replay. Officials showed him that he was in fact in the wrong, but John wasn't buying it. He yelled out, "I didn't move." The thing is, officials weren't convinced, and he knew he'd be disqualified. So what does the track athlete do? He faces the crowd, hoping to get a response out of them that'd force the officials to reconsider. And when that doesn't work out for him, he lies down on the track and refuses to leave. Yup, John ended up delaying the race by an hour because of his antics, with officials pleading with him to just get up and go already. He eventually did get up, but was in tears when he made his way back to the lockers. The whole incident went from being amusing to silly to downright sad. It did, though, force World Athletics to reconsider their false start policies. So, I guess John's tears weren't for nothing. How about a more wholesome fail to end the video? The time Heather Dorniden tripped and fell, but still won. The four-time USA national champion and the University of Minnesota middle distance runner was the favorite to win the Big Ten Indoor Championship in 2008. That was until she tripped and fell. The commentators thought she was done for, even though the runner got back up again almost immediately. But I mean, did anyone seriously think she'd still win? Well, that was a bet everyone lost that day, because not only did Heather show true spirit, but she also defied the odds that were stacked so far up against her and ended up winning the whole race. Yep, Heather went from being tied for first place to tripping down and being a couple of feet behind the second-last runner in the final lap of the race. She got back up, sprinted her way ahead of one track star, then the other, and right when she was tied for first with Penn State's favorite athlete, she pushed her body to the limit and made it across, literally by just a few inches ahead of the runner-up. Talk about an adrenaline-pumping event. So from Heather Dorniden, proving that you can still get back up again, to Jeffrey Julmus tripping over the first hurdle, those were the most embarrassing track and field fails of all time.